Hi guys, welcome to your science for today. We're carrying on looking at materials and their properties. And we're looking at whether we can choose appropriate materials based on those properties. So, can I recognize what materials were available for the Vikings? Can I identify the properties of various materials? Can I decide which material is best for a particular job? So during our topic, we've considered the different properties of materials. We've tested their strength, their water resistance, their absorbency, and their thermal insulation. And we've got quite good at science. And some of the experiments I've seen have looked really interesting. And I've loved watching the videos and looking at the pictures of what you've been testing and how you've been testing it. We've also discussed other properties, whether they're hard or soft, rough or smooth, rigid or flexible, transparent, translucent, or opaque. I'm sure there are some more. I'm sure you can think of more. So in the various locations the Anglo-Saxons and Vikings would have settled, there would be limited materials. So what materials can we see in these different images? So your first task, in each picture we're going to find two materials that could be used for making other things. So we're looking for a total of 8. Pause here for the woodland. There's wood, so we can use it for building. So if it's green growing wood, we can use it for building. We can dry it out, we can leave it. The older dead wood, we could maybe use for firewood because it'll be nice and dry. We could use the leaves for bedding. So you could have a nice soft bed with the leaves all tucked away underneath it to give you some comfort. So there's some ideas you could use. The coastline. What items can we use from here? Pause now. We could use things like the stones and the pebbles. We can use them for building. We can use them as tools. If you need to break something open, for example, a nut, you could take one of those stones or 2 of those stones even, put one on the floor, put your nut on top of it, and then bash it with the other nut. You could use the water. I wouldn't recommend drinking it because seawater is not very good for you, given that it's got quite a lot of salt in it. You've got the earth from the cliffs. You get clay cliffs as well. So you've got lots of different types of stones. You could, if you boiled the water away, you'd be left with salt. We can use salt in our cooking. A river, bank, and field. What could we make using the materials in here? Well, we've got the water in our river. The water we can drink, it can keep us alive. The grass, again, you can use grass in making a bed. You can wrap it all up and have it as a nice soft bed to sleep on. You've got trees again for building materials and firewood. There's lots of ideas you've got in here. You can use the land as well for having the animals eating the grass. So you can use them for that. So you can make meat by using the materials that are here. Native animals. Pause here to see if you can work out some ideas. So fur is being one of them. We can make clothes out of the fur. And the horns and antlers, they can be used to make lots of different things. You quite often will find that there's artifacts from the Viking times where they've used antlers to make handles for knives and swords. They've used the mink, so the animal in the top row, second from the left, next to the hedgehog. They've used the mink, they've made soft clothes out of it. They've used the leather from the goats to make their shoes. So there's lots of uses of the animal products there. So although your home may look different to this one, many of the features of your building will be the same. So it doesn't matter whether you live in a house, a flat, a bungalow, they'll all have some very similar features. You'll have clay tiles or some form of tile, and the roof will be sloping. You'll have glass for your windows. You'll have bricks for your walls. And you'll have plastic drain pipes. Some places have metal, but they're very expensive and they're not as user-friendly as plastic. So we'll think about the properties that each of these products have. I tell you what, why don't you have a go? Why do we use clay tiles for the roof? Why do we use glass for the windows? Why do we use bricks for the walls? Why do we prefer using plastic for the drain pipes? Have a think about the properties of those materials. Pause here and have a think and write down some ideas. How did you get on with those? So the clay tiles, the sloping roof, they're water resistant. So they're designed to let the water run off, which is why they're on an angle. If we laid them flat, we just have puddles on our roofs and water gets quite heavy quite quickly. And if we have heavy water sitting on the roof, well, the roof won't be the roof for very much longer. It'll end up on the floor. So we have it on an angle so that the water runs away and it gets down into the drains. The glass windows, they're transparent and they're water resistant. So we can sit inside when it's raining, knowing that the water's running off the roof, and we can look out and think, I'm really glad I'm not out there today. Brick walls, they're strong and they're water resistant. So it leaves us with a nice dry home. The plastic downpipes, they're cheap, they're easy to shape, and they're also water resistant. It wouldn't be no good making rainwater pipes out of cardboard tubes because they'll go soggy, they'll fall apart, and then the water won't get where it's supposed to go. So builders, whoever they are, can only use the materials that are available to them. They must look at the properties of the materials and make the best choice that they can. But what if your materials are very limited? So what if you don't have a builder's merchant you can drive up to, or you can ring and they'll do a socially distanced delivery of all the materials you need to build a home? What if you have just sailed across the North Sea? You've landed in Britain in the year 800. There is no such thing as a builder's merchant. They've not been invented yet. You've got to use what's available to you. So, task 2. Earlier in the lesson, you thought about the materials that were available to the Anglo-Saxons and Vikings. So we looked at the woodlands, the animals, the rivers and forests and the seas. So when the Anglo-Saxons and Vikings, when they first arrived, that's what they had. It says here, as they couldn't just pop to B&Q and buy what they needed, they had to use what they could find. You've already helped your people find a location for a settlement. Now you need to design your home. So you need to think about a sloping roof to make sure the rain runs off it. What are you going to use to make the roof? What are you going to build the walls out of? How are you going to support all of this? These are some important questions to have in your mind as you decide what materials you're going to use. So we want you to draw a picture, a clear picture or a diagram of the house you would build. Clearly label the materials you've used. List the properties of those materials, explaining why you chose them. As our Viking friend here says, thank you for your assistance, young warrior. So I'll show you an example. So my house design, I've done a bit of artwork here. I've got a tree trunk to support my roof. I've used wood for the walls because it's strong and readily available. If I was down by the beach, I could look for big rocks. I could stack them together to make a rock wall and have those. I need to think about materials to use for the roof. So I want something that's going to be water resistant, that's going to keep me dry, that's going to keep me warm even. So The tree trunk, I've labelled it on my drawing, and underneath I've written why I've chosen it. It's strong, it's quite straight, and it'll make a good frame for the house. So this is how you might go about doing it. Obviously, you're going to need more than one material to build a house. You can't build a whole house out of one tree trunk. You will need to think of the materials you're going to use. So use the list you made before. Feel free to magpie some of the suggestions I made as we talked through the pictures. See what you can come up with. So, as it says, obviously, you're going to need more than one material. So make sure you've given lots of thought to the materials you're using and why you've chosen those materials. Good luck. I look forward to seeing your work, as always, on Tapestry. Take care, and we'll see you soon.